Imagine working for a boss who called you a moron during a nuclear disaster.
You and Toktanov, you morons, blew the tank.
That is exactly what Anatoly Dyatlov did at Chernobyl. And the scary part isn't that he was rude. The scary part is that his leadership style created a workplace where people stopped speaking up. And when people stop speaking up around a nuclear reactor, bad things happen. Today, we're looking at 5 leadership mistakes Dyatlov made throughout HBO's Chernobyl series. And by the end, you'll see why his biggest failure wasn't technical, it was cultural. The first warning sign was how he treated people. Most leaders have bad days. Most leaders occasionally lose their temper. But Dyatlov turned that into a management strategy. Listen to how he talked to his team and about his team.
I think even you, stupid as you are, can manage that. You and Toktanov, you morons, blew the tank, incompetent morons.
Now, imagine you are one of the operators in that control room. You discover something unusual, something potentially dangerous. How excited are you going to be to bring that information to this guy? Probably not very. And that is the problem. Every insult teaches people something. Not about themselves, but about you. It teaches them whether it's safe to speak up. And Dyatlov made it clear that speaking up came with a cost. But insults weren't his biggest problem. What came next was worse. Leadership mistake number 2. If disrespect doesn't work, many bad leaders will reach for fear, and Dyatlov certainly did. Listen to this.
Well, I don't know if I can make things better for you, but I can certainly make them worse.
That is not leadership. That is intimidation. And intimidation creates a very specific kind of workplace. A place where people stop taking healthy risks. A place where people stop raising concerns. They stop telling the truth. Not because they don't care, but because they're protecting themselves. And when fear becomes part of the culture, problems don't disappear. They just go underground. But even that wasn't Dyatlov's most damaging habit, because fear eventually leads to something else: silence. And that is leadership mistake number 3, encouraging silence. One of the most revealing moments in the entire series happens when people try to challenge Dyatlov. Not because they're rebellious, because they are concerned. They are just trying to do their job. They're trying to keep people safe, and watch how he responds.
Shut the up and do your job.
That sentence right there tells us everything. Notice what is missing here. There's no curiosity, no questions, no attempt to understand, just authority. Do what you're told. And the irony here, it's incredibly painful, because the people closest to the problem are often the people with the best information. But leaders like Dyatlov don't see disagreement as useful. They see it as insubordination. And the moment a team learns that disagreement isn't welcome, they just stop offering it. And that is when leadership becomes dangerous. Because now the leader isn't seeing reality anymore. They're only seeing the version of reality people feel safe sharing. And that is a much smaller picture. But there's another behavior that shows up repeatedly throughout the series, and that is leadership mistake number 4, blame. Whenever something goes wrong, Dyatlov's first instinct isn't curiosity, it's accusation. Listen to these questions.
Is it too much to ask that you all know what you're doing? What did you do?
Now, those may sound like questions, but they're really not questions. They're accusations with a question mark at the end. And the difference matters. Good leaders ask questions to learn. Bad leaders ask questions to assign blame. One creates information, the other creates fear. And once people expect blame, they stop bringing problems forward. Because every problem they bring, it just becomes evidence against them. But there's one final behavior that ties all of this together, and it's the most important lesson of all. Throughout the series, Dyatlov repeatedly communicates the same message, not with one action, but with dozens of small actions. The insults, the threats, the accusations, the dismissiveness. Together, they communicate one thing, and that is leadership mistake number 5. It communicates, I don't care what you think. Now, most leaders would never say those words out loud. But teams don't judge leaders by what they say. They judge leaders by what they consistently do. And over time, people begin adapting to the environment around them. They stop volunteering concerns. They stop sharing bad news. They stop challenging assumptions, not because they're weak, not because they're incompetent, but because they've learned the truth is not safe. That is the real tragedy of Dyatlov's leadership. His biggest failure wasn't that he made mistakes. Every leader makes mistakes. His biggest failure was creating a culture where other people were afraid to help him avoid mistakes. That is the biggest lesson from Chernobyl. People don't hide problems because they are disloyal. People hide problems because they've learned it is unsafe to tell the truth. And whether you're leading a nuclear power plant, a business, or a small team, the principle is exactly the same. Your team is constantly asking one question. Is it safe to be honest here? Your behavior answers that question every day. And the answer determines whether you'll hear the truth before a crisis or after it. Dyatlov shows us what happens when leaders create fear. But the Chernobyl series also gives us a very different example. A leader who started off arrogant, dismissive, and absolutely convinced he was right. And then he changed. His name? Boris Sherbina. And his transformation may be the most important leadership story in the entire series. Stick around. If you want some help identifying these patterns in your leadership, I've linked a worksheet in the description. Go and check that out. And if there is a TV or movie character that you'd like me to analyze, drop that in the comments. And until next time, take care.